my friend's a priest, and he was telling me, he's like, "Yo, I can't watch this football team anymore. It's gotten too painful." And I'm told him, like, "Yo, you gotta hang on. You can't be saintless." We got jokes here, bad jokes. That what's cool, what's going on? I hope you guys are doing amazing. You're probably like, "Oh man, don't quit your day job. Don't do anything stupid, G Sling." I hope you guys are having a really good day. We're gonna be talking about the New Orleans Saints. Who dat up here in this nation today? Let's start off with the offensive line. And I will say the one good thing about this Saints offensive line is they've got 3 starters that are locked in under contract through 2026. And Trevor Penny will be going to that 5th year if they decide to give him that. And one thing I gotta give Trevor Penny some credit, he looked not like a bust this year. He actually played well, and we gotta give credit where credit's due. Trevor Penny elevated his game this season, so maybe he can take that next step. And like Spencer Brown, right? Spencer Brown took him 3 years, and this was his 3rd year, and he had a bit of a breakout comparative, right? This was definitely his best season and put together a very solid season at that. So if he can build upon that, he's already one of the better run blockers. He's got to continue to get better as a pass blocker, and he could be a very, very good tackle. And you got Talisi Fuwaga. They spent their first round pick on him. So they're in a good position tackle wise going into this season. I mean, could it improve? Absolutely. But as they get older, as they get more experience, it should naturally improve. At least that's the hope. More development. Kellen Moore going to have to improve that development. It's the swing tackle position that I'm mainly concerned about here. And I still have Ryan Ramczyk listed on the roster. He's going to, more than likely, he's going to end up retiring. At least that's the way it looks like. Early retirement for him. And unfortunate, that's the way it works. Sometimes these knee injuries just, it's really tough, and I wish him the best, and hopefully he does recover and gets back to football. But as of right now, it seems like he's going to end up retiring. So getting a swing tackle, Landon Young can also be their swing tackle. So he's somebody that can be. I imagine he would be actually the starting swing tackle if there were injuries. He can play in a side at guard. He can play a tackle. So it's nice to have him back. Besides that, though, I will be investing in a swing tackle. It's not an early need with Landon Young, at least having that versatility. My big priority here is that left guard position, so I do want to improve that, and I think we can add somewhere on day 2 to compete with Dylan Radins, who's on a 1-year contract, $2 million. I like the deal. I thought it was a really good contract for them. He's a guy that's kind of a fringe starter that needs an opportunity. You got Nick Salivari, who's kind of dealt with a lot of injuries throughout his career. He has some talent, though. He could develop into a starter. They still need to invest in this, and that's why I'm saying it's like a second, third, fourth round type of option for them. Depending on who's on the board, I still think they need to invest in that. Cesar Ruiz been a little up and down in my opinion. He'll have some really good games, and then he'll have some really bad games. So let's iron out the consistency. Still trying to consistencies his game, if that's a word. But Ruiz in at right guard, locked in under contract. Eric McCoy is one of the best centers in the NFL. He just unfortunately got injured. He was putting together an unbelievable season. Just happened to get injured. This offensive line went downhill after that point. So getting Eric McCoy back is going to be huge. Could they use some depth at the center position? Absolutely. They still have some money to bring in a backup, and that's what I would do. And they could also draft somebody late or bring in a UDFA guy. In general, this offensive line needs some guard help, so I'm going to be, or an interior lineman, and that's what I'll be looking at in the draft. There's a generalized theme, too, with this offense is that they have so many injuries. This wide receiver room was decimal this year, and Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, getting those guys back will be tremendous. But Shaheed was turning into one of the best deep threats in the NFL, period. Chris Olave is great route runner and solid all-around receiver that could be a consistent 1,000-yard guy. Brandon Cooks comes in on a couple-year contract. Interesting. They had said, "Hey, we made a mistake letting you go. Let's bring you back a couple years. Maybe you can finish his career here as a New Orleans Saint." I'll be loving to see the little bow action going back here in New Orleans. Brandon Cooks, at this point, is he as good as he once was? No, but at the same time, still a solid wide receiver. Could they upgrade this room? Absolutely. Their depth was in question with all those injuries, and they just really struggled so much. And I do like Bud Memes, former Pittsburgh wide receiver. I think he could end up being a nice quality fourth, fifth receiver with some development. Maybe Kevin Austin could develop there too. Mason Tittman got a lot of opportunities. Just didn't see him make a whole ton of plays. So that's kind of where we're at right now. They definitely need to invest in another wide receiver. Do they have to get a big X? No, not every single team needs a big X type of receiver. And it will be something we can look at. It just depends on who's on the board. I just say you take the best wide receiver. That's really all they need to do at this point. And you look, Jawan Johnson's kind of like a big X in many regards. He's a big wide receiver that can play tight end, and they brought him back on an extension. We all thought he was going to go to Denver, it seemed like, but no, he stayed in New Orleans, which is always good. Foster Moreau had a very good season, so keeping him back here is going to be big, but he is a free agent going into this year. All their tight ends, except for Dalen Holker and Jawan Johnson, are free agents, so it's something they could look at in the draft. My main priority here is getting more depth in this wide receiving room. I think that's the number one priority. Tight end wise, we can worry about that next year. For right now, they at least have locked in starter with Juwan Johnson. And Foster Moreau certainly could step up and be a starter. I mean, he made a ton of big plays this season, so I feel good about that. And then go into the running back room, which you got a star. You got one of the best running backs in Alvin Kamara still in the NFL. He's been so consistent throughout his career. Unfortunately, came up just short of that 1,000-yard mark, which hopefully he'll get here very, very soon, rushing wise, of course. But this is the problem with the running back room, and why I highlighted in yellow is mainly because like they need some more help into this room. They need a number two guy. I mean, you got Alvin, but what about the Chipmunks, right? Where's Simon and Theodore? I don't see it right here. So I mean, they gotta add some more Chipmunks into this room. All jokes aside, though, seriously, they need some more depth. Kendrick Miller has just not really shown that to me at this point. Clyde Edwards-Helaire certainly could be somebody else here in this room that can be a nice solid backup. But overall, like they need to add somebody else. Early day 3 in the draft would make a lot of sense to me. Late day 2, certainly in the cards as well. Just need to add another running back opposite Alvin Kamara to be that sonic and boom in that Alvin Kamara and the Chipmunk role. Let's go on to the quarterback position now. And Derek Carr, what a conversation to begin with here. So here's my view on this. I think Kellen Moore should rock with Derek Carr this season. This quarterback room, you got Spencer Rattler. Hey, don't give up on Spencer Rattler. What he had to deal with, a bad offensive line, like no wide receivers, all of them were injured. So I don't want to, I mean, it wasn't perfect, okay? He really struggled inside the pocket. I'm not saying he's ever going to be a starting level quarterback, but he also showed a lot of flashes. I mean, he's got the arm talent, he has some mover ability, and somebody that could develop with the right tools and with the right amount of time and whatnot. I just wouldn't draft a quarterback at this point, and especially when you got Derek Carr under contract, his money is guaranteed at this point now on that salary cap for the next 2 years, with them just forcing some of that money into the future, Mickey Loomis, and making that decision. So now he's really on the books for the next 2 years, which to me, I think it just wouldn't be very smart. I mean, you could draft a quarterback and continue to develop, but then you're probably cutting Jay Keener, which you could do, and it would, I guess you could understand that, but then you're also giving up on Spencer Rattler and his development. So then you're basically saying that what that third, fourth, or that fourth round pick was a complete waste. So you have to look at it from that perspective as well. So unless you're completely enamored by Shador Sanders or, Jackson Dar, whatever the case may be, I just don't think it's smart to draft a quarterback. Derek Carr can get the job done. He can win with his football team as you continue to build this roster, get a little younger in key departments, and see how things go under a new regime in Kellen Moore. So that's where I'm at. I'm not saying it's a perfect quarterback room, but at the end of the day, they've got a lot of other needs, and you got to continue to build this roster before, trying to invest in another quarterback. It just doesn't make a whole ton of sense from where they're at, quarterback value, cap wise, all those sort of things. Let's move on to the defense, though. Let's start with the defensive line. And this defensive line needs some more influx of talent and more youth, I think, onto this line. And you look at Cam Jordan at this point in his career. I mean, great player, Hall of Famer. He's just getting a little bit older now, and you can't really rely on him as a full-time starter. And he took a step back, in my opinion. He still could be a disruptive player. But you got Chase Young now under contract, so that's good. I mean, Chase Young definitely got a lot of pressure on the quarterback. I like to see him finish a little bit more consistently and show higher effort motor, especially in the run game. But overall, at least it was a good signing. I think it wasn't like super crazy of a deal either. And he is a good football player. Carl Grandison, very, very solid football player as that. I don't think he's as flashy as Chase Young is, but he's a very consistent player. And there are times where I don't see him making a ton of plays all the time, but he definitely is an impactful player and as a guy that can make plays in the run game as well as their best really run defending guy that can also have some pass rush. And the thing I will say is like he could play a little 5 tech for this defense and Brandon Staley, and they could get another like true 3-4 outside pass rusher, edge rusher, hybrid off the ball linebacker. And that's kind of what I'm looking at in this draft for them. And I think it makes a lot of sense to go after somebody like that with Brandon Staley coming into town and going to be transitioned to more of a 3-4 style in front. So that's really what I'm going to be looking at. And I do think it's an early need in this draft. And their depth, too, is another question mark for me, is like, especially with Cam Jordan at this point in his career. So they're going to be looking at that. And I think that's something that we need to prioritize in this draft. And that interior defensive line, they've invested in this and they got Devon Gottschall in a trade. And that's going to help them out in the run defense immensely, which was a huge problem for them this season. So getting Devon Gottschall, I like that addition. Very, very good at stopping the run. He can hold the point of attack, and especially them moving to a 3-4, he fits right in at the nose. You got Brian Brzee, who had a bit of a breakout season. Still needs to work on his run defense as well, right? Getting off blocks more consistently in that regard, holding the point of attack. But as a pass rusher, he really showed big time flashes and on his way to be maybe a Pro Bowler. I mean, there's definitely possibilities heading to year number 3. Continue to get stronger at the point of attack. Nathan Shepard is good role player. I don't see him as a full-time starter. You got Keelan Sanders who can rotate in there and is a nice solid early down player as well. But this is another area they continue to invest in. And it's talk about maybe Carl Granderson can also play a little inside, especially on pass rushing downs. It's not top priority. I would rather get another edge rusher in this room if I had to choose between the two. But I do think no matter what, they need to continue to invest in the defensive line here on the interior and especially off the edge. That's an early need. That's a first, second round type of priority. Defensive line, depending on who's on the board, I would say anywhere from like fourth, fifth, sixth round at latest. It's looking somewhere in that department. And then going on to the next department here, the jewelry store. We got the linebacking room. Demario Davis, great player. Still pissed off the Jets let him go. They should have never let him go. Davis has been a leader for this team, and he is under contract now for this next season, but he is going to be somebody that going into a contract into 2026 could end up retiring. They need to continue to invest in this. Maybe Anthony Orgy can be a guy, showed out at special teams, and also made some plays for them this season as well. So he is a guy to keep an eye out on. I still think they need to invest in this, and I will be investing and looking heavily into this room here as we got the glasses sweating in. You got Pete Warner, who's been a solid player. I wouldn't call him an elite linebacker, but he can get the job done and make plays along the line of scrimmage. A little limited in his role, but I do think he is a solid linebacker here. Just needs some more help. And whether Jalen Ford can be a guy, we shall see. Former Texas player. But we go on to the cornerback room, and I'll be investing in the cornerback room. And this is an area that they need to continue to add into. You bring in a veteran presence, or bring him back, or should I say, an Isaac Yadam now on a couple-year contract. But besides that, like they do need a lot of depth in here, and you could also use somebody else to at least compete with Isaac Yadam. And Yadam is fine. I mean, I thought he got beat here and there one too often. He's not a terrible corner. He certainly can play. I would just love for him to be like your fourth corner. McKinstry looked great as a rookie. I think he is going to be like that guy in Brandon Stanley's defense that like Stanley does a lot. Like one guy plays in man coverage, and then you have like bunch formations of corners where you got three guys and you're playing zone coverage, zone match principles. Like I see McKinstry as that one on the guy by himself, and then maybe you get another, you get your zone corners over here in that bunch formation. So I think Yadam, Taylor. Now Taylor's going to play in that star role, that nickel hybrid safety role in Stanley's defense, and I think Taylor will really thrive in that. He struggles on the outside. You really don't want to put him in that, but he can be a really good football player in the slot. There's some frustrating times when you watch Alontae Taylor in his film. Like he'll give up some big plays, but he'll also make a ton of plays. That's really Alontae Taylor. He's a little hot and cold, but he's a very solid football player and has potential for sure to be a Pro Bowler. And finish up the roster portion of this breakdown and starts off you bringing Justin Reed on a couple-year contract, which is nice. I think Reed's a really good football player. He was so good at the end of the season in the playoffs for the Kansas City Chiefs. I will say, like he was playing at a star level. But Reed's a very good football player, so I'm glad they brought him in town, and keeping him now for the next 3 years will be huge for the safety room. You got Jordan Howden, just has not quite shown the consistency to be a full-time starter, but as a good backup, I feel good about that. Tyrann Mathieu going into a contract year. Maybe they give him an extension to finish out his career as a New Orleans Saint. So that's why I don't see this as a top priority, but it is something that they could invest in. You have Howden, so he certainly can play if you need him to, especially if you have injuries or whatever. But it is something maybe late in the draft, day 3, take a shot on and continue to invest, get a little more youth into the safety room. Ho, Merry Christmas. It's that time. We got the draft on tap here for the Saints, and starting off with number 9, that first round selection. What do you do? Well, I'm taking edge rusher, Jalen Walker, linebacker, whatever the heck you want to call him, disruptor extraordinaire. That's really what we're going to call him here. They're going to add a guy that's going to bring a ton of energy and heart to this defense, right? He could be a leader for this football team and for Brandon Staley, this new defense, this new regime, and Kellen Moore. So that's really what I'm looking for, an Energizer Bunny. Jalen Walker. Now, I'm a little lower on Jalen Walker than a lot of people, I'm sure, and what the NFL is right now. It seems like he's going to be going inside the top 10, and I totally understand. Like the traits, the talent, the heart, the effort, the motor, everything I hear about this guy on and off the field as a leader, he's going to go early, and I totally respect that. And if he's got the grind, if he's got the work ethic, I don't see why this guy can't be a top 10 disruptor in the NFL. Like he's got the traits, he's got the tools. So if he can put it all together with his hands, be more consistent getting off blocks, and be more developed as a pass rusher, because right now he just really wins with athleticism and speed. He really doesn't have a whole ton of nuance. He doesn't have a whole ton of power. His size is going to limit him as a true edge rusher. But once again, in this style of defense that he can drop back into coverage and be a hybrid edge rusher linebacker, I think he fits perfectly, would be a great add for this defense. So that's what I'm going with, and getting another playmaker on that defense. And then on to round number 2, we got Maxwell Harrison, the Kentucky cornerback, the ball hawk, the zone ball hawk, and he's going to be a nice add here for Brandon Stanley. and his defense that can play in that zone bunch heavy side. And I talked about earlier, like Kool-Aid can play that one-on-one side. You can leave him over there and play press man coverage, and then you got those three guys off coverage or whatever. You got Maxwell Harrison competing in with Isaac Yadam and Alante Taylor in the slot. So I just think adding another DB extra important and somebody that I really think can make a lot of plays and be a good pairing opposite end of Kool-Aid McKinstry. On to our third round selection, Wyatt Millum, offensive lineman, played tackle, played left tackle at West Virginia Country Roads, but he brings a good road blocking, road grader in the run game for this New Orleans Saints on the inside. I think he moves inside at the next level. I like him a lot as a guard, using that power. He's one of the best run blockers in this draft class. He just drives dude, man. He really does. He's got that emphasis on the leg drive and moving dudes one-on-one in the run game. Has enough athleticism to get on the move. He's not an elite athlete or anything like that, and that's why I think he moves inside. His footwork on the edge, his lateral agility just isn't quite going to be something. But he could be a swing tackle too for this team, which I don't mind. Hey, you give him a little bit of versatility there, but I really see him as a great opportunity to compete at the left guard position for this football team. I think he's underrated at this point too now. And they got Chris Paul Jr., the linebacker from Ole Miss, going to give them another coverage player to go alongside Pete Warner and give you a good developmental guy behind Demario Davis for a season or so, and then he can end up taking that role. Look, I think he didn't play early on in his career, but as a good developmental guy, as he continues to get stronger and taking on more blocks, that would be a really good idea for him to come along slowly and get in an NFL weight program. And he has the coverage ability, I'll tell you that right now. Next pick, we're going with Jordan James. Great vision, great solid runner. And I wouldn't call him a ton of weaknesses in his game. Maybe he's not the greatest receiving back, but you got Alvin Kamara. And that's why I say like the strengths and the weaknesses of those two complement each other. I think James can be that good early down bell cow. Alvin Kamara can be that 3-down workhorse still, of course. I mean, he's still the best running back on this roster, but James is going to be a very, very good complementary back, early down, a change of pace player between the tackles runner that this offense could really use. And then on to our next fourth rounder, we're going with Pat Bryant, the wide receiver from Illinois. Going to add another big body wide receiver into this room and maybe somebody that can be that bigger X style possession guy on the outside. He's good at winning those 50-50 balls. And as I was mentioning earlier, it's not like they have to go after that type of receiver, but it would be nice. And it's somebody that could be at least a rotational player and a guy that can give you some more size, if especially in certain matchups that you're going against with teams. It gives you another matchup target, and that's what I think Pat Bryant can be for this football team as a fourth, fifth option receiver for them. And then we're going to Ty Hamilton, the Ohio State Buckeye, kind of the forgotten man. Everyone talks about Tyleik Williams, those two edge rushers, JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, but what about Ty Hamilton, a nice, solid interior defensive lineman that just gets the job done. I also think he's very versatile. He can play up and down the line, too, for the Saints defense, which I really, really like, and that's something I'm going to value a lot. But you put him up on this defensive line, he's got a quick get off. He holds the point of attack. I mean, he's not going to be a dynamic pass rusher. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's really not his game. However, like, as an early down guy that at least could be a rotational player, I think he's going to be a very nice football player that at least has a very much like a Tim Settle level career or something like that, can be a very good, solid player for this team. And then on to our first seventh round pick, I'm going Marquez Siegel from Kansas State. Reminds me a little bit like a Russ Heath, a little faster than Russ Heath, but he's a guy that can play in the slot for them, cover, play up top, and give you a lot of versatility. He's a good blitzer. He can come down and run support and play that tough. Now, play strength is not his department. He's definitely undersized, in my opinion, at least looking at him on film. And I mean, he came in decent size and everything like that, so he's got some muscle mass to him. But on film, the play strength doesn't quite show up consistently, and taking on blockers and stuff like that. Like, there's going to be some limitations there with his game, regards to that. Overall, though, like at the end of the draft, he's a really good athlete, has the coverage ability, and could be a little bit of a hybrid player for them. And if nothing else, give him great special teams ability. Take a chance on a guy with that, with some traits. And then final pick, I'm going with Trey Wadig from Indiana, formerly of Wisconsin. He transferred over. I'm glad they got him over for the Hoosiers and helped him protect Curtis Rourke this season. It wasn't always perfect, but Wadig's a guy that I watched some film on him. I watched the Ohio State game, and he's a guy that I think has some issues with his balance, gets a little over his toes, struggles sinking his butt, leverage, and things like that. But he does have ability, his footwork. I think he can play tackle. He's got the size to play tackle, and certainly could be a good developmental swing man. They could also play on inside. That's what he did at Wisconsin. I see him as more of a guy that certainly can play tackle though, and as a swing tackle, just adding more depth in this room. That's really what I'm looking for to finish up the draft. They could also draft the center there too. I thought about that, kind of going between the fourth, but I think adding maybe a veteran presence center is also an option too. Whatever they want to do, if they want to add a veteran tackle, veteran center, but Landon Young can also play at the tackle position. So we'll see how that all works out. But here is our draft, and here's what it looks like after everything. Let me know what you think. Agree or disagree on this. Of course, what would you do differently? What players would you really, really want? It's always fun, man, going into the draft, but I'm ready. I will say I'm ready for the draft at this point. It's so much fun, and we'll see what happens. But in terms of what I feel like they really need to do, I would avoid the quarterback position in this draft. I know there's a lot of talk. Do you draft Shore Sanders, Jackson Dart? I think you avoid it this year. I think next year, if things don't work out, if Kellen Moore gets a season with Derek Carr and this offense and continuing to build this team, and you're like, okay, we're not going forward with this, then you can go ahead and go after that quarterback, figure things out there, and hopefully a better quarterback class. But I think in general, what they need to do this roster, priority wise on the offense, adding some more offensive line competition is priority one for me here at that left guard position slash swing tackle. Yeah, they can use another center possibly too, as I mentioned earlier. Like they need to add more competition on this offensive line. There's some promise here, and I do think they're moving in the right direction. Maybe one more offensive piece that they feel good about on that line, and then they should be in a pretty good spot. That's my view on it. And then they could also add another running back slash wide receiver. Those are the other two areas that I feel like they need to continue to add depth at the running back room, depth of the wide, especially after the season they had with all the injuries and whatnot. And then on the defense side of the ball, this is where my main draft picks and main priorities really come from. Defensive line, they got to add another pass rusher in here, especially a 3-4 defense and fit in Brandon Staley's type of scheme. I think Jalen Walker would be a really good addition for this team. And then another cornerback too. I think that is their other big priority onto this defense. Getting somebody that can compete with Isaac Yadam. And sure, Yadam can come in there, start early on, but Harrison, maybe mid-season, ends up taking that role, at least giving them some more depth. And certainly going to be something that they like to do is make sure they got plenty of defensive backs. Lastly, adding another linebacker in here too. I think that's something they have to look at. Now, I think they're going to look for a little more speed, a little more coverage ability in here. And that's why I added Chris Paul Jr. Now, so they could look at a different linebacker. Just going to really depend on what Brandon Staley's going to want from this defense. I'm kind of making predictions and guessing. So there's a lot of options on the table. And then finally, we had some special teams and some more depth, with Ty Hamilton and Marquez Siegel just helping out the roster. Got to look at those special teams. All three phases, man. It's important. And that is it, though, for the New Orleans Saints and their mock draft. I hope you guys have a really good day. And certainly hit me up, man. Let me know what you think. And I hope you have a cool day.